This is myself, Anne Curtis, and I'm with Clesia Mendes. And we're going to talk today about solving relationship problems. So, where this is coming from is that we were doing a coaching session together, and we were discussing relationships, and so much interesting stuff was coming out, and so much that we thought would be valuable to other people that we thought we would do a recording and I'll introduce you to Clesia and let her talk a bit about who she is, what her background is, and why she's interested in relationships, and then I'll talk a bit about myself and my background, and so that you know where we're coming from, and then we'll get on to talking about what we can do for you. Okay, Clesia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you very much for having me here, and Curtis. Um, as Anne said, my name is Clésia Mendes, and I am originally from Portugal, in case you are wondering about my accent. Um, in terms of my background, I've done several things in the past, like most of us. I used to run my own business when I was in Portugal, and about 13 years ago, I came to UK, and basically, my in UK, most of my time I've been using in the banking industry. I've been in the banking industry for 10 years now, and it's something that I really, really love. And I'm a very curious person, so in terms of I've been passionate about personal development for many, many years since I was 19 years old. So about 5 years ago, out of interest, I started following the path of knowing more about coaching, and I started with my first clients about 5 years ago in terms of coaching. How did we come about? How did I become interested in relationships? Well, I guess the reason why I became interested in relationships is because from observing my parents, which didn't have a brilliant one, and
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and I'm very curious person. I thought, wow, so obviously that whatever they're doing is not working that well. So what would it be like to have a relationship that works really, really well? And that I've been in that search for many, many years. But that is what's originally sparked my interest in relationships.
And did that help you to find the answer for yourself?
That's a really, really good
Looking at
question.
your parents and thinking, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of have what you call a reaction response, right? So if I see something and that doesn't fit for me, I go exactly the other way around in the other
Mhm.
in the other direction. And I wouldn't say I can't say that I've got like, well, actually right now I'm single, right? So I don't right now the perfect relationship that I do have is the perfect relationship with myself. But most important is that I came from that journey of observing, right? And I had like all these ideas and misconceptions what a good relationship would be like,
Yeah.
but I didn't have like great role models, at least from my childhood. But the interesting thing is what you is kind of I heard in one of my personal training development trainings, I heard what you focus on expands. And once I asked myself the question, what would be a great relationship like? I actually started recognizing, attracting people to my life that had relationships that worked. And
Yeah.
I and back then I thought, wow, I would like to have something like that. Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. So I'm interested that you said that at the moment you're single,
Hmm.
but actually the most important relationship you have is with yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I think we're looking at, in fact, is because that's one of the things that I discovered um, finally when I came to the three principles, which was only earlier on this year. I mean, I had been studying how to have happy relationships for over probably over 30 years. I mean, I I was also interested in how to have happy relationships when my parents had problems with their relationship when I was a child, and I wanted to make it better, and I wanted to and I tried to make it better, but whatever I did didn't work, and I didn't realize it wasn't my responsibility.
Mm.
And it made me very miserable, or I felt very miserable in that situation, and I tried everything to change that, to make them happy. So so once I became a doctor, and I realized that a lot of medical problems, health problems, were to do with emotions and relationships, and we're all tied up in that,
Mm.
I decided to do some more training in sexual and relationship therapy.
Mhm.
And I did that as a doctor. So I did it along traditional lines to begin with. And then because I was finding that the results I was getting with that were not always the best. I mean, I got some good results, helped some people, but the results were not ideal for most of the people that I saw.
Mm.
And certainly weren't working in my own life. I was being a relationship therapist and getting divorced at the same time, which didn't seem quite right to me.
Mm.
So I then looked for other ways of approaching relationships. And funnily enough, although I had decided that I was not going to do the things that my parents did, I still ended up doing those things. So I was very curious about that.
Wow.
And I was looking at, I then found NLP, which definitely changed things big time. You know, that definitely helped more people. When I used NLP techniques and helped people with NLP techniques and then later EFT tapping,
Mhm.
and both of those techniques helped a lot more people that I saw in relationship therapy in my general practice, and both helped them to get the results that they were looking for. Or at
Wow.
least I say that, but it definitely helped them get over the problems that they had at the time, but not necessarily um, be totally happy
Yes.
or find ongoing happiness in relationships. Some people did, but
Mhm.
again, that wasn't working for me. so
Yeah.
so I knew it wasn't, and I was just when I do something, I do it. You know, I just so it's easy to say, oh, they weren't doing it, wasn't working for them because they weren't doing it properly, or they weren't practicing it, or they weren't doing all these techniques, they weren't actually using the techniques. Well, I know that's not true because I used all of the techniques, and I spent a lot of money and a lot of time training in all of those things and learning those things and practicing them and teaching them to other people. And to some extent, I felt a bit of a fraud teaching them to other people, because although they did work for some
Mhm.
people, for a lot of other people, they didn't.
Yes.
And eventually I got burned out and fed up with it, and just felt I couldn't promise, I couldn't make money from it because I didn't like to charge people when I didn't know that the results were actually going to be
Mm.
what I wanted them to be. And so eventually I just gave up my medical practice and gave up my therapy practice and thought, right, I'm just going to do something else completely. And it wasn't until, so that was in 2009, and it wasn't until this year when I was actually focusing on something else completely, because my mother was dying from cancer and I was nursing her. So that was on my mind completely. And, and that was when my sister gave me a book called Somebody Should Have Told Us, a very
Mm.
good book that I would recommend to everyone to read if you haven't read it already, by Jack Pransky.
Mhm.
And that really changed my life, because when I first read it, I thought, oh, this is just the same stuff again. And how is it different? But something in it, I just felt I just felt something different.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I logically, I couldn't work out what it was, but I just felt something. And I thought, there's definitely something different in this, something, yeah. And, and then one of the things that occurred to me that was different about it was that that I had always believed that my feelings guided me.
Mhm.
Okay, in not just in relationships, but in all ways in life, but particularly in relationships, that my feelings were a guide to what I should do, what was good for me, what was going on, and so on. And what I discovered through reading this book was that my feelings definitely are a guide,
Mhm.
and a very good guide, but not in the way that I thought they were. So that what my feelings are telling me is not, so if I'm feeling bad, or if I'm feeling uncomfortable about something, or I'm feeling uncomfortable around someone, I thought my feelings were telling me, oh, you've got to look out here, something's not right, maybe you shouldn't be doing this, maybe you shouldn't be with this person, maybe you should be going somewhere else, be careful and look out and so on. And actually, what I discovered was that all that feeling was telling me was that I was having an uncomfortable thought.
Wow.
That all my feelings could only be as a result of my thoughts. And so, which hadn't, I mean, it had occurred to me because in the things that we'd been doing before in NLP and so on, we were taught that our thoughts were what was our feelings, our experiences, and so on. But then we were taught that we had to change them,
Mm-hmm.
that we had to try and change our thoughts. Whereas this was teaching me, it's just a thought. Okay, so if I was feeling so, and that made a huge difference in a relationship, because I used to get really upset and really angry with my partner,
Uh-huh.
and think that it was because he'd done something. So I would be blaming him all the time. So, which made a big difference, because it was, oh, I shouldn't be with him. I shouldn't be with him. And I got so angry, I would actually end the relationship,
Right.
because I would be saying, oh, he doesn't, he hasn't, he hasn't turned up on time, or he hasn't rung me on time, or he hasn't rung me when it might not be quite as that, but something like that. And then I would get, and that would mean that I would make meanings out of that. That I would have that thought, and then that would mean I'm feeling bad, so that means he's disrespecting me. And that's another thought, and then it would just be one. It would escalate one
Right.
in a really low
And
mood,
I,
and yeah,
yeah, yeah. I was about to say is that, and I love this, and it's one of the things that I heard, or one of the many things that I heard is that, okay, so naturally, because the originally the relationship with you saw from observed from your parents wasn't brilliant, you start finding out, you become interested in finding out more about relationships that work. And you go in a journey of about 30 years to find the
yeah,
answer to that. And I love the fact that you don't give up, because you try all these modalities, and what I heard is that, okay, some modalities didn't work, some work a little bit better, some work a little bit better. So I almost feel like you kind of, even though you felt it was taking a long time, you definitely were going in the right direction, because you're
yeah.
finding something, you kept finding more and more things that actually worked.
Yes, but what is interesting, Clesia, is that I actually did give up, and it was when I gave up that it came to me.
Oh,
That
that's
the answer
beautiful.
came to me is when I stopped searching and searching and searching and trying to find it. And it's a bit like, well, the way that I see it is that it's like, well, when we're keeping our minds busy with thoughts, and when we're just keeping our minds busy, we're not open to what's available to us in our connection with universal mind.
Hmm.
Okay, so in a simple way of looking at it, like when you see somebody that that you and you can't remember their name,
Hmm.
and the more you keep trying to think about it, the more you're asking yourself, what is this person's name? What is this person's name? And the more you're trying to work it, you're thinking and thinking and thinking, the more you don't remember what the name is.
Hmm.
Okay. And then eventually you give up and you go away and you do something else that doesn't take a lot of thought. Okay. So
Hmm.
when you're doing something else that doesn't take a lot of thought, that you enjoy doing, um, so you might be listening to music, you might be painting you might be doing something or you might just be driving. So it doesn't take much thought. Okay. And then suddenly that name pops into your head, apparently out of the blue.
Hmm.
Okay, because it was there all the time, but you just couldn't see it because there was so much else. You were so busy thinking
Yeah.
that all that thought was in the way, and so I think it's a similar thing, that I was so busy looking for this answer, so
Hmm.
busy looking for, so determined to find the secret of how relationships work and how we can be happy, and so on, that I didn't realize it was inside of me all the time.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And it was only when I stopped all that busyness and all that, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, which to some extent, the personal development world tends to encourage you to do more and to do more and to do more.
Absolutely.
Until I found the three principles. Yeah, till I came across the three principles, and this through Jack Pransky's book. And since then, I've read lots more. And another book that I would highly recommend is the Relationship Handbook by
Oh,
George Pransky.
okay.
Yeah, that's a really, really good book too. And that's if you want to know about that. And George Pransky and Linda, his wife, have had lots and lots of experience with relationships and how relationships work and so on. So they're definitely worth reading.
Yeah.
And in fact, before I forget, I will be, if anyone wants to get in touch with me through my email or through the through my, you can use make love for life at gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's an email. And then there's a Facebook page, which is Facebook/make love for life.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'll do is make I've got a whole list of resources, great videos, great books, useful resources for anyone who's looking to look further into this about how to have great relationships.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. This was the first of a 3-part discussion. You can listen to the other 2 parts by clicking on the links or going to facebook.com/make love for life.